Hi everybody, this is Nick from Saberz.com, and today we're going to look at the Nova carbon blades that we made. We made this in conjunction with Project RH right here and Project EF, and these are designed to perfectly replicate the carbon fiber Texalium blades that were used for the stunt sequences of episode 3. But they actually can work with just about any saber out there. You can bundle them with these hilts that we made, but you can also just get them for any saber, and they're actually really fun to duel with. I realized we had never made a video doing the installation of these blades, so I'm going to show you how the installation works. Each Nova carbon blade comes complete with a hardware set, which you see right here. The hardware set includes a short push rod with set screws already installed, a long push rod with set screws installed, and 2 adapters. Now these adapters would only be used if you're going to install the Nova carbon blade onto a standard type of hilt that just has either a 7/8 inch blade bore or a 1 inch blade bore. If you're not going to install on one of those kinds of hilts, you don't need these at all. So the first thing we're going to do is loosen the set screws and unscrew them from the long push rod. Adapters down, now we've got our long push rod and our short push rod available. Now which one of these you want depends on where you're going to install the blade. If you're going to install the blade on one of our rehearsal hilts, either the RH hilt or the EF hilt, then you're going to use the long push rod. And most people are installing on one of these hilts, so I'm going to show you using the long push rod. We're going to take our green Nova carbon blade and we're going to insert the long push rod. So you can see these set screws are sticking out just a little bit too far. So we're going to take our 2.5mm hex wrench and back the screws out until they're very nice and centered on the push rod so that they will slide in to the Nova carbon blade. So same story for this set screw. Get it nice and centered and it'll push in. And there's a shoulder right here which should approximately make it line up right here. You can see that set screws are lined up with the 2 holes on the Nova carbon blade. Now what we want to do is push those set screws down so that they contact the inside wall of the Nova carbon blade. These are wrapped in clear shrink wrap, which is exactly how the episode 3 blades were made. So we're going to just puncture the shrink wrap right there at the holes. So make sure you're looking at the hex bore and not the opposite side, which is just the cupped side of the set screw. Make sure you're looking at the hex bore, put in your 2.5mm hex wrench, and tighten until you get a nice solid lock on the set screw. There we go. Again, this is the long push rod, which is going to be used in our EF and RH hilts, but you can also use a short one if you're going to install into a standard saber, and I'll show you that later. All right, now installing onto the Project EF hilt. The whole hilt is held together by an M10 through rod that's functioning just like the push rod on the Nova carbon blade. So what we're going to do is unscrew that. You can just grab the whole assembly and unscrew it together. The screw is going all the way through the saber from the tip of the emitter down into the pommel, and the pommel is what's threaded. So if you just kind of hold the rest of the saber and unscrew the pommel, make sure you hold everything in your hand so that as you finish unscrewing, it doesn't all fall apart and just fall onto your work surface. Okay, and there you can see all the components of the Project EF. Now we're going to put them back onto the Nova carbon blade, and we can just thread them on in reverse order. So first we'll do the emitter, the copper neck piece with the long end first, wind vane, then the main grip, and finally the pommel. And that's it. That is a completed Project EF saber with a beautiful Nova carbon blade. This is actually, in fact, exactly how they were assembled during the production of episode 3. Sometimes there would be various set screws on different components. We didn't put one in because those were often in different spots for different hilts, so we just left this as clean as possible. If you're really dueling hard, you may want to consider either using some Loctite on that threading or adding a set screw yourself. We just didn't want to ruin the beautiful appearance of this hilt the way that it is now. But if you're dueling really hard and the vibrations from your dueling starts backing some of this threading out, you may want to consider one of those options. Okay, so how do we install a Nova carbon blade on a standard hilt like this beautiful half a Project M that I've got in my hands right here? Okay, what we're gonna do is exactly the same as what we did before, except with the short push rod. In this case, we're gonna take the 7/8 inch adapter because Project M is a 7/8 hilt. You just thread the adapter onto the Nova carbon. You tighten these two set screws with a 3mm hex wrench. And now this blade goes quite easily into any 7/8 bore. And if your saber had a 1-inch bore, you would just use the 1-inch adapter instead. Boom. And there is Nova carbon installed on a Project M. This isn't exactly how they did it for episode 1, but it is really fun to spin these blades around exactly as they are. So thank you for watching, and you can grab all of this equipment at Saberz.com. Thanks again.